noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares with me. From the Cora, muchas gracias. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help get the message get out a little further. Gracias. Well, everyone, first and foremost, I want to say this is going to be a little bit different than what I usually touch on. You guys know I only touch on personal stuff that I was there or involved in, and that will never change, right? What I mean is I stick to my own, right? Because I know the inner works, everything that's going on. So I don't touch another races, norteños, white, blacks, others, for that same reason that I could know what's being played out, that you could see, but I don't know the backstory, right, or the inside loop. So I try to stay away and be as respectful from it. So I don't mean no type of disrespect to the norteño gente. I'm doing this as respectful as I can. Also, it's a question that I've been asked numerous of times, which is, as a youngster, I had so much hate that led me to whatever towards norteños. When did it change? When did it start changing, right? So allow me to touch in what I want to talk on. I'll take you back to Corcoran. I had just gotten validated. They had just moved me from A yard to B yard before I would get settled in and become Ruben or Night Owl's Celida Señor. You guys know that story, right? I was downstairs when I first got to B yard. I was with a homie from Compton. I don't really remember what hood he was from 100 and something in Compton, right? They used to call him Gallo. So he was a cool individual, a real cool homie, right? He had just recently been validated in a different pinta and had just been sent to Corcoran for the same reason. So we were both, you could say, new to the that Wiggles, right? I was used to it because to had to be 7 block B yard. If you were there, mostly everybody was validated, right? There was very few of us on B section that weren't. But anyways, we had neighbors on both sides. On one side, we had two brothers that were bloods, right? And on the other side, we had a we had a homie, a gangster, from Stockton. He was from that neighborhood, Triple S or something like that. He was a norteño. He had been validated actually for quite a bit, right? He used to be Nuestra Raza, and like I mentioned before, when you're in the shoe, you gotta show respect. You know, you gotta show peace, make peace with your neighbors, not just for so they don't mess with your line. Because if they're any type of active, they won't, regardless, right? But it's just you're stuck 24/7 there, so you know you never know when you're gonna need assistance in any way, at least in small things, right? But anyways, as time will go on, me personally with G, from Stockton, we would get along pretty firmes. For those that have been in Corcoran Shoe, you guys know there's one side where there's a hole where the TV cables go in, and there's a middle where they connect them so we don't have access to the electricity, whatever, but you could talk through there. That's how we were able to conversate, right? Upstairs from us, we had Paisa at the beginning, and I believe they were woods, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, we kicked it off. Him basically he had a lot of family from SR, and a lot of them were from South Park. You guys know it's a small world. I always say, even when it comes amongst different factions, if you're just from the same area, somehow, some way, somebody knows someone. And me growing up and being born in South Park, it's basically how we started conversing. Now, as things got further, I don't want to sound nosy or nothing, but I noticed he would go out to walk alone. You know, there was still group yards, but he still go out by himself. He was single cell. So, me asking him wasn't a reflection on if he was wrong with his people or what had happened. None of that. That's none of my business. Basically, my angle was if he was in still good standings or if he was DO. Because, well, you guys know. And basically, he told me that, nah, he had pulled a mission on one of his cellies right there in on B Yard Corcoran, right? When he first got validated. And it had came down from, I believe, Carlitos, right? Carlitos or, I believe Carlitos. But, anyways, he basically didn't do his do Jillian or he didn't ask the whys, right? And he took care of Vasily, not took his life, but took care of him, if you guys get it. And that's what led him to walk alone, single cell status. And, to me, that was cool. There was no need to say more. I knew he was on the gallos, so, you know, he couldn't have been a DO because there was flow from other norteños coming in and out towards him, right? So, anyways, as time went by, one day he knocks on the wall, right? And he calls out Chino. So we start talking. Homeboy been down for a long time, and he basically starts confining in me, right? And he starts telling me that he was tired. Now they were pressing an issue on him because I guess the call on his celly was a wrong call. It had to do, I guess, with his celly claiming to be something that he wasn't, and it had came down that it was false. But it's just like with us. One of their big homies, they're never gonna take that in the chin. They're gonna clear house though, but they're not gonna take it in the chin and saying it was a mistake from them. So it came a point in the conversation where I'm like, "Hey G, and with this, why you telling me this? I didn't mean no disrespect, no trying to discourage him. I was there, but at the same time, it was like we gotta know our limits, right? But you form friendships, even if you're not supposed to. It's a weird friendship because you're cool, but those doors crack and it's boogie time. and no questions about it. And we both know what time it is, right? But anyways, he told me, look, Chino, it's been a pleasure. You've been a cool dude. Um, when I haven't had nothing, you have shown love and whatever, right? That's not important. I just want to let you know, I'm going to committee. They're gonna give me my double cell status again and walk, basically to come out to yard again. And I don't know what's gonna happen. Is when he starts basically playing it out how he's just following a appeal. Sounds familiar is what I would do later on, right? With Night Out from King Cobras when Artie requested that service, and I told him, so basically you're gonna call it quits. And it was a live lesson. I guess I should have seen it like that, right? But my state of thinking at the moment did not allow it. To be sincere, I just heard him, and the only thought that went in my head is, "You're going no good." Again, it don't matter behind a cell door, but it's always good to know. And I told him, "Why you try to work around it?" And he basically told me there was a lot of, you could say, a lot of dislike from the NF to the NR that he belonged to, and he refused to bow down to them. He had done things they requested to the dot, and now it had become an issue. And if it becomes an issue when he goes over there, then he's going to do what he has to do. He ain't going to be a victim. So I. That part. I honestly think everybody, regardless of what, deserves to defend themselves. You gotta, even if you have something coming and you do, nobody could tell you can't defend yourself. It's like when we're getting jumped in the neighborhood. Even when you get jumped in, if you don't defend yourself and hold your ground, then you won't be blessed to get in the neighborhood. At least that's how it was with us, right? Anyways, long story short, he would end up going upstairs with another norteño. I don't really know his status in the form of norteño, NR. I know he wasn't an F. They call him Knuckles from Stockton too, because he used to be a boxer. And anyways, the day came, he went up there, and I just said, buena suerte. Just keep your head up, regardless of what you do. I ain't saying so many words, but hey, if you go bad with your gente, don't do that debriefing BS. Just hold strong. At the end of the day, he had a date eventually, right? And anyways, I try to express what I would do. You know, like when I took out my celly, there was a lot of issues. To be honest, I was waiting for where the trancazo was gonna hit, and I wasn't gonna sit down. It was gonna be what it was. Gonna have to really take my win for me to disappear, if you guys get it. But other than that, there was no other option but to either stay relevant or get pressing that line, even though I was gonna lose regardless. I just going winning was never an option for me. And that was just me, right? Speaking about me. But that's why I told him that. He went up there with homeboy, and it had to be less than an hour. and the homie G starts whacking knuckles like big time. I remember the Hooters running, and even after the Hooters running, it took a while, and they had to open the door and drag him out. You know, he didn't stop. He was out to take his life because basically it was like, okay, you guys took my career. You're selling me up with this individual. You're sending them to take my life. So I won't take his. I don't know what happened in the cell, but I know from that moment on, G from Triple S, he got removed from all activity from Norteños. We did happen to converse later on, right, in medical, and he wasn't happy. They were trying to okey doke him the same way we function, right, to basically sell up again or come out to yard, and he was going to do it. He said, I ain't going out like that. If it means me selling up again and catching more time, then let it be, right? And eventually we'll get moved from 3 block to 4 block on B side, and I don't know what happened with him, you know. And later on, it was like, how do I say this? It was a lot of vatos, including senores, right, making fun of the situation, like to whatever extent. And it's when I told you guys that story, it's like we couldn't say nothing, but there was an officer in the tower that he was known to crack doors, mainly on important people, or whenever you went out to yard, it was like, hey, Mister, I don't want to put him on blast, but hey, so and so is, you know how he is, this and that. You can't accidentally, open them doors where when the Judas are in a different block or whatever, right? And he did. Well, I guess two Pilis requested this on an NF member, Baba or Boo from San Jose. He was a short, stocky dude. I heard he was a professional kickboxer, but I can't assure you of that, right? And I don't want to throw shade on Pilis, but two of the most known in 2003 in Corcoran, for those that don't know that were back there, two of the most known, they weren't even old. The doors open, and I swear to everyone that NF member stomped them two Pilis out. And it's not to make fun of them in any way, I would say their names if that was the case. But that individual had mean chuckums. They came out with fierros, they couldn't even touch him. He laid him out. And of course, one, being an idiot, you know, you wanted to be like, ooh, or anything, and you couldn't. You could never speak on it, ever. But, anyways, later on, I would hear that they actually end up taking G's life. You know, I don't really know the details. Again, I just know they gave him back his double cell status, and it went south for him. He knew what was coming. I don't know if he tried to do something. Kenny was in 4 block, but he said he got the best of him. And basically, what I wanted to touch on this story is, little things like this throughout my stay in the shoe amongst norteño gente and efforts and stuff. I started noticing that With Raza, we're going through the same struggles in the system and outside the system. We're following a Tecato mentality that's always going to abuse their power. They're always going to punk our gente, period, as as a whole, right? And here's a perfect example, right? He did what he was supposed to do for a carnal of theirs to the dot, and that led him to basically get more time, hurt another fellow norteño, and eventually get his own life taken by it. You know, if I put myself in that situation, like a year later, a year and a half later, is when I would get that appeal from Marty saying that night out a main member was just taking room to go ahead and deal with that situation, but to deal with it, not go at it and then leave it halfway, which you guys know that story. I need to rehash it, but I did. I did it to the point where I was under investigation for a long time, but when we leave that alone, I guess the insight to the story is, you know, we tend to always, especially people that have not been busted, right, tend to talk out their necks about sureños or norteños or bulldogs, or when in reality, I think what's happening right now is cool. It's firmes. There's peace on the yards. But I truly think that something big's gonna hit here soon, either with norteños or with sureños getting tired or whatever, right? Because I mean, I haven't touched on the story, but I know just like M members in public slap camaradas. We're talking about slap slap. I know NF members do it to norteños and laugh about it. But you see, without throwing poison, I'll leave it with a question for everyone in general. When things start being looked into the way they're supposed to, let's be sincere. Okay, let's put ourselves in a situation. We're on a yard, we're sitting down, a wood, a norteño, a brother comes and slaps you in the face and laughs about it. What's going to be your reaction? It's boogie time. The whole yard's going to go up, right, against that faction. And it goes for every angle. Okay, now you guys don't notice that we're allowing a different faction to do it and we're not defending our gente. When a Mexican mafia member does it to a sureño, remember, when it's beneficial for them, they don't follow our rules. They're a whole different faction. And that's exactly what they'll say. Emma, we're different. A whole different faction than you guys. You guys can't say, dictate, nothing that has to do with us. But we can with you. So I think that's where the misunderstanding is gonna come up. And you're starting to hear it. For those that don't know, there's been a couple incidents, should I say, of camaradas really getting fed up and moving on pilis. But again, I'm not here to spread poison. It's just a simple story on how, you know, I think our worst thing is we always make up the differences of one another. When you're in the shoe, you tend to touch on how we are the same in many ways. But to answer the question, that's what had me little by little start, you know, seeing norteños differently. Then I came to Mexico and I started functioning in the prisons in Mexico. And norteños in the system in Mexico, they just get treated just like us. So there's a point where I've been where bulldog, norteño, sureño in a Mexican jail, that's out the window. We all know where we are, but at the end of the day, it's the Cali Ranfla. We all stick together for a bigger purpose. And that's what really had me change my outlook towards norteños. I can sincerely say today, there is no hate for them at all. There's a lot of respect there. Of course, it's just like with anybody now, right? If one was to come and get it all crazy and stuff, then we boogie. But it goes across the board. Again, it might have took what 17, 18 years, 14 in the shoe, and then the time I did in Mexico to actually see the real in look. But I push for everyone to stay smart. What I mean by smart is know what's best for you and your family, and always keep your sights on what's really happening around you. Stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones. I hope I made sense, everyone. Again, I tippy toe around a lot because I'm trying to do with the utmost respects, right? Buenas noches.